My name is Cyrus Setna. I'm the co-founder of a visa processing company called Eeza. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our three panelists. Welcome Neil Patil, who is the director of Veena World. Anup Kanuga, who is the Tourism Council head of the Travel Agents Association of India. And my friend and mentor from Russia, Valentin Dombrovsky, who is the CEO of Travel Labs Russia. So welcome all of you. I think we've lost Neil for a second. Anyways, hopefully he'll come back in time for our question. I'll just kick off this panel discussion. I think this discussion with IRM has come at an extremely appropriate time. We are all aware of, and we can even imagine the damage that has been done to the industry. So hopefully having these three experienced travel gurus with us on the panel today, you'd be able to give us all a glimmer of hope maybe, and some facts about what's going on in the industry. Speaking of facts, let me just kick this off with a few gloomy facts and get that out of the way. Hedge funds that have been bet against the travel and tourism industry have made profits of around $1 billion. And have almost $3 billion in short positions outstanding. So for all of you who are absolutely zero with their finance knowledge like me, I'd just like to sum it up that this is bad news for everyone. The second interesting point is that Europe, which has been one of the first major destinations, travel and tourism destinations to open up, has seen a 30% dip in their travel and tourism index. And lastly, one of the biggest travel firms in the world, TUI, has declared a loss of $1 billion in just their first 7 months. So without further ado, I'd like to just move on from all these gloomy facts to Neil Patil. My first question is to you, Neil. Considering Veena World is a relatively new agency, a lot of your presence is online, and you seem to have worked quite hard to break away from the run-of-the-mill travel agency traditional structure. Can you give us an overview of what the company's vision was when you all started, the stage you all reached before COVID, and what the strategy is for you moving forward?
So, Cyrus, we started the company in 2013, and since 2013, it's been a good 7-year journey. One important thing that I'd like to point out is that when we started it in 2013, we realized that it's a cutthroat competitive market in India. And in a competitive market, if you were to start something small, you may not be able to sustain or survive in the long run. So when that is the case, we decided to go for a hybrid model because the Indian market, as much as it is online, it is also offline. And one of the USPs that we have at Veena World is group travel. So we bank on people wanting to travel across the world, something as simple as a small destination in India, or group travel to places like Antarctica or the Arctic. So this was something that we envisioned, and through a hybrid model which had a lot of online, but at the same time around 200 touch points in an offline manner across India, was developed since 2013. I think one of the most important things in this was trying to stand out through the people that are working with you, and also innovative products that you get to the market. Because travel for everyone, there is less product differentiation when it comes to going to a place. A Colosseum seen by a traveler traveling with Veena World is the same as a Colosseum seen by a traveler traveling with any other travel company in the world. So out here, service becomes important, and because service becomes important, we try to create models or products where people could celebrate life, because when you travel, you celebrate life, right? And right now, all of us are holed up at home over the last 4 months, and we've realized how important travel is in our lives. So we had the mantra, which was celebrate life. And over the course of 7 years, we started in 2013 with 35 people. Today, we are almost 1,000 people operating in an online and offline manner. We are servicing around 100,000 customers a year. Of course, COVID is going to be a hiccup, is going to be challenging and all of that. But before COVID, we had reached a point where 1,000 employees were servicing 100,000 people a year. We had one of the largest tourism forces, tour manager forces in the Indian market of 400 tour managers. One of the main things here was guest service, and because guest service was important, we have one thing where we do not hire freelancers, and because we don't hire freelancers, it becomes important that we have proper training modules for our tour managers that travel all across the world. So in a gist, that was us. We took a 360-degree approach, decided to start a company that would be scalable, and as a result, since 2013, I would say that we are not satisfied with our growth, but we are happy with what we've achieved. And going forward, it's going to be the same thing, but like in a much more different way, where we don't make travel just safer, but you have to make travel better, because just making it safer is not going to help you. Like if people are really wanting to travel with a company like you have to make it better for them through all of the different touch points. So I think that's my take on that.
Wow. Okay. Thanks, Neil. That's super interesting, especially your point about when you guys started out about how about the vision. A lot of people tend to try and play things a bit safe at the start, but you said that if you start off things small, you may not make it, and I think evidently that is the case considering you all have reached to where you are at least before COVID. So congrats to you on that. My next question is for Anup. Anup, so Bhatija Travels, which obviously you've run for years, has obviously been a very successful agency, specifically in South Mumbai for decades. I'm sure you and even your father have seen difficult times in the past, I don't know how many years. What are your predictions for travel agencies in India? And are there any particular strategies that you have in mind to weather this storm?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me over. Yeah, our travel agency is more than 60 years old, started by my father. He still comes to office. He's 89 years old. And I have been here for more than 30 years now. We've seen ups and downs, but we've never seen anything of this kind of magnitude. So it's been something new to us, and it's obviously going to be a learning process for all of us. But having said that, the travel industry is a very resilient industry. And personally, I think it will definitely bounce back. It will begin with domestic tourism, then regional, and then followed by, of course, long haul. Also, we'll see a lot of mergers and consolidations amongst travel agencies, big and small. We'll see a fewer number of travel agencies in the future. And where fares and taxes and stuff like that, they are bound to rise because airlines are going to factor in. We'll have more flexible fares now. So as a result of which, we'll see airlines jacking up fares. Then coming to other predictions, I think travel agencies will also reduce staff, and we'll have a lot of we'll try to increase efficiency of staff by training them more and having dual responsibilities rather than having we've seen in India, at least we've always been overstaffed. So I think this is a good wake up call to all of us to have just the right amount of staff. Also, I think the age demographics of the traveler I foresee will change. We'll see a lot more younger people traveling, more leisure travel happening, and we'll see the older people now traveling less because they're more susceptible to uh, illness or something, or they'll be worried about it. Then the strategies, the point number two, which you said about strategies, I think all travel agencies now have to make their revenue flow stable. That is very important. We have to conserve cash and manage our finances appropriately. That is very important. We'll also see travel agencies selling a lot more of insurance products now. And point number three, I would say the Indian market, we give a lot of credit. Now that has to stop somehow. And we have to encourage our customers to pay by credit card or pay before they travel and not pay 3 months after they come back. Then upgrading of staff skills, also teach them digital technologies because that will be the way forward. And last but not the least, all travel agencies now have to be nimble and agile so that we can move quickly and address the changing traveler needs across the journey.
Great, Anup. So I think that's extremely insightful for everyone, because just the brick and mortar travel agencies have been such an institution in the past for so many years. And I mean, it's been several years with with the influx of companies like Make My Trip and Clear Trip, where people are saying now the travel agent is going to get redundant, he's going to get redundant. So I think you've given us a positive answer as to where y'all see yourselves, and clearly, once things do bounce back, hopefully, y'all will definitely not be redundant. And I strongly advocate for all travel agencies that they're one of the best ways to book and plan your travel agent, regardless of how archaic the process might be at times. So thanks, Anup. Valentin, you, and I can vouch for this, you are just extremely passionate about all things travel. Can you give our predominantly Indian viewers a quick overview about the global giant travel companies like Airbnb or Kayak? You can take your pick. Tell us what you think about them, where you think they're at right now. Are there any unique ideas, strategies, or developments that you have seen globally in the last few months?
Well, if we speak about such major companies like Booking.com, well, yeah, first of all, thank you, Cyrus, for having me here. I'm sorry, I'm sorry that I'm not very polite. But yeah, if we speak about these huge global companies like Booking.com and Booking Holdings in general, so we know that Kayak is part of Booking Holdings, right? Airbnb or Expedias of the world or whatever. In a way, they act well, kind of similar to each other because, well, of course, they tackle similar problems. The problem is that the revenue is obviously down, like with anyone in tourism. And of course, they experience huge amount of cancellations and huge amount of returns which we need to proceed. Speaking about gloomy numbers, like you've given us some of them in the beginning, I've looked through some facts recently, and I found that on recent earnings call with its investors, Booking Holdings has reported 95% revenue drop in the second quarter of 2020. So you can imagine, like almost all of the revenue is gone.
Yes.
So this is, of course, very sad situation. And of course, there were news about layoffs. Like Anup has said, these companies are also thinking about being more effective in this time of crisis and having only those people whom they need now on board. This is obviously. At the same time, it's interesting to see their approach to working with their partners, like hotels or hosts at Airbnb, for example. Airbnb has introduced some sort of partner saving fund of sorts of $250 million, which is somehow distributed between its hosts and super hosts, especially. Expedia has announced some marketing support activities for its hotels which are on the platform. So they try to work with this. And again, of course, we have to deal with cancellations, and in these terms, it's interesting that some analysts say that Booking.com is in better position than Expedia because Booking.com does not take that much money ahead. There are many bookings which are made on Booking.com are paid in the hotel. So basically, Booking.com doesn't have to deal with this like returning money on cancellation problem as much as, for instance, Expedia does, which is quite interesting because recently we've seen that Expedia, for instance, they've also introduced this opportunity for some hotels. You can book a hotel and pay in a hotel when you arrive. But for most of the users, most of Expedia users still pay ahead by credit cards. This is a common way to do it in US, for example, right? But it seems that right balance between different forms of payments should be like one of the priorities, and this is one of the things which revenue managers should think about. Not only about how much money you take from the travelers, but also how do you take money from the travelers? And of course, during times of crisis, there are lots of different opportunities. I don't know how exactly it's done in India. I know that there are different ways of payments and different ways of common payments in different countries. In Russia, we have like lots of payments by credit cards, and many people book hotels and pay on their arrival and all these things. And there are some companies which introduce installments. I know that in South America, for instance, installments are very common, and you cannot be on travel market in South America if you don't offer installments. They only do installments. And I don't know how much it is done in India, but I'm sure that installments for this for the time when travel should go up. I think that this would be one form of payments which would be very important, and I think many companies around the globe will be introducing it more and more. So this is my quick take on your question.
Okay, thanks, Valentin. Every time I speak to you, it's always like I'm speaking to somebody who's like an encyclopedia on everything travel. You've always got all your news up to date and who's doing what. So thanks. I think that was great for me and for the other panelists and the audience. My question now, this is just an open question after hearing all of your thoughts, and obviously everyone's view is that things might get expensive. Anup said it's going to be more leisure travel, more of younger people traveling. My question is, how is this conflict going to be managed? Fares going up, fewer people, fewer destinations to travel to. How will the industry weather this storm? Are there any specific ways to make the process of selling travel and tours easier? Do you go to a specific market only, or will we just have to kind of wait and see what the response is like from travelers? So any of you
I
want to
begin?
take?
Or
Who wants to start?
like should? All right, so I'll start with my take on it. I feel that there are chances that travel might become expensive, but there could also be chances that travel might become slightly cheaper in the short term. Of course, there are airlines that have been on the ground for 4 months now. Major airlines that like Emirates or Etihad that have ordered a lot of new planes like the A380 have been on the ground for a long time. The longer that an airline or an aircraft sits on the ground, it's more money that they're losing every day. So of course, airlines over the long term might increase fares, which would in turn increase holiday prices. But at the same time, we have a view where if you look at India has been slowly creating travel bubbles with different countries. It was as of yesterday that India did a travel bubble with Maldives also, which is going to start in the next week. So it seems to me like airlines are lobbying in a way where governments start creating travel bubbles. Governments start relaxing the 14-day quarantine that every country wants its new arrivals to undergo. And because of that, we are moving to an approach where people will think about safety. People would think about safety of their loved ones, and also if something were to happen to them, what's going to happen. But at the same time, if you look at the industry, and I think Emirates has taken a headway on this, where they have brought in insurance plans that are promising you that if something were to happen to you when you go travel, Emirates would ensure that it's insured and would take care of the costs that are there. So I think it has to be a collective effort across all organizations, airlines, hotels, travel agencies, because today we are hearing that our airport is better than this airport or something like that. But if we start saying that, the end customer does not have faith in the system. So a collective effort all across the world would really help when it comes to this. And as a result, like, customers would be the end winners of this, because there is still competition. So there can be a price floor and there can be a price ceiling. So that price ceiling is not too high, I feel. In the short term, it's still going to be, people will travel in a life with COVID. There's not going to be life after COVID for a long time. So let's call it life with COVID. And I think people are going to be up in the skies traveling again quite soon.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I tend to agree with you as well about people I mean, life with, I mean, COVID is not going away anytime soon, and we can't presume that, especially as business people. So figuring out how to live with life with COVID, I think everyone's been locked up for so long. So if, like you said, things relax a bit, quarantine rules and airfares aren't skyrocketing, I'm sure travel will pick up as soon as possible. Valentin, you made an extremely interesting point about Booking.com and not having, not taking their money in advance, or most of the payments happening at hotels. Do you think that would be a necessity moving forward, that companies and travel booking companies take all their bookings up front? Do you think that sort of relaxation will go away? So in order for them to remain competitive, it is kind of like 100% or 90% booking up front before the customer actually comes to the hotel?
Well, again, it's an interesting question. As I have said, this is question of balancing two things together. Of course, well, I mean, booking without the need to pay right now has its advantages, obviously, right? At the same time, it's good when the cancellation policies are cancellation policies allow you to, at least if you pay up front, you can at almost any time take your money back. This is also a good thing from travelers' side, from travelers' point of view. Honestly, I have experienced a few, let's say, policies of different accommodations myself, because I have some travel planned, and all bookings were made honestly through Booking.com. And different accommodations have approached this like returns very differently, especially in the beginning. I think later Booking has introduced like general policies that if you are canceling this booking at this period of time, then accommodation should you repay in full, and they somehow compensate to the accommodation or something like that. But in the beginning, the policies were very different, and I've seen like very different approaches. Some of them were really client oriented, some of them were not so client oriented. I had to actually move some of my bookings forward, although I don't know, like I had to go to Switzerland, and there was a conference, and a hotel has offered me only moving my booking like forwards, like to autumn. I don't know, I don't need to go to Switzerland in autumn, so I don't know what they will do with this booking. But anyway, so this is this question of balancing things up, and also of course, like, we don't know for sure like how assured the travelers would be about their future plans. This is the problem right now. We're almost sure that domestic travel will be like happening in like following few months. But even if we say like that there is this, well, as Neil has said, this term, honestly, I haven't heard it before, travel bubble. I understand that this is some agreement between two countries. So like we have travel bubble between Russia and Turkey, for instance, right? So we are not sure if we can plan our trip, for instance, from Russia to Turkey ahead, like for a few months. And in this case, if you want your travelers to book far ahead, you might want to offer them some flexible options, some opportunities, and they should be assured that even if they pay, they will be able to get their money back. You know, like this situation is, well, we've spoken about hotels, but with airlines, it's really like a mess. So again, in Russia, we had some really big problems with airlines, like keeping people's money, and you cannot get your money back. This should not be the thing. So you should, like, money should move freely between different parts of travel industry, but I understand that sometimes it's very difficult, and especially in current situation when money is tight.
Yeah, interesting, Valentin. Thanks for that. Anup, you spoke about how insurance, selling of insurance might be a key component for travel agents. Are insurance providers now looking to give out any sort of interesting packages specifically for COVID and for COVID travel that would truly help and benefit customers, or is it just more travelers now seeing the need for buying travel insurance? Because a lot of time previously you'd have people, if it wasn't compulsory for their visa application, or wasn't really
They wouldn't
compulsory
take
for
it.
travel, you'd see them
Right.
traveling without it. So
No,
what's your
but
opinion?
I think more people will now take, or at least travel agents will now encourage people to take insurance policies which cover COVID as well. But so far, insurance companies haven't got back to us because they've not started working full time yet. So we look early September. We think from early September onwards, they should come out with a plan which covers COVID as well. And we, that now what we need to look at is insurance should even cover cancellations of bookings. People who buy domestic tickets, if we can encourage them to take insurance, that would be good business for travel agents as well.
Yeah. So as of now, right, there is no specific COVID clauses in these insurance policies for travel.
No, not that I've come across. I don't know if you can throw some light on group bookings where they have worked out with some insurance companies.
So, to give you an idea about insurance, as we have seen over the last 2 months, everything is changing. So, newer companies are coming up with newer rules. So, there is a lack of consistency in the market. What we are foreseeing is that insurance providers would have come up with a product for organizations also, and for final like end customers also, because organizations want to safeguard themselves from another pandemic. God forbid another pandemic comes in 2022 or 2023, and all of us are hoping that it should not, but then the pandemic has taught us a lot. So insurance providers are working from both angles, where businesses should be insured, at the same time end customers should also be insured. So that is something that we have on it yet. There's no consistency in the insurance plans that are coming up all across the world, but we are getting there, and we are anticipating that in a month or two there will be all insurance companies being on the same page and having plans ready for both sides.
Okay, that's great to know. That's quite comforting for travelers and travel agents and everyone involved in this, because that'll get customers to probably start their bookings and give them another reason to take the chance for traveling. Anup, so you obviously head the Tourism Council for the Travel Agents Association of India. Can you give us any examples of how TAI is working towards helping all its members and partners in these times?
Yeah, we have a very active president and team of office bearers and committee members. So our president is Mrs. Jyoti Mayal. She's based in Delhi, and she's been in constant dialogue with Ministry of Tourism, the Director General, Civil Aviation, Ministry of Finance, Niti Aayog, and all these ministries connected with tourism. The finance point of view, from the finance point of view, we've asked them for, there was this TCS which was to be introduced in April. We've asked for a deferment, and they have done a deferment so far till October, and we are still trying to get it removed altogether. We've asked even for reduction of capital, interest rates, waive provident fund contribution, GST holiday, and defer GST liability for over 12 months. These are the things that we work with these ministries. Also, we've had a huge challenge about getting refunds from the airlines. You must be knowing that airlines have been putting travel agents' money in a credit shell and allowing only that passenger to use it in the next 6 months. So, which has not really been fair, because they've cancelled the flight themselves. If the customer wants the money back, they should have it. So we've had a great lot of success with Indigo. Air India too has started, giving us refunds, although it's taking 3 months. Lufthansa has started. Emirates has begun giving refunds, rather than they were telling us to postpone up to December 2021. So we've had quite a lot of success with the airlines, rather than getting the money in the credit shell, to get the money to the agent, who in turn can use it for any other passenger, and then that's how he can refund the money back. Then we've had a lot of webinars for our travel agents on different destinations, to educate them, since they have free time. It gives them an opportunity to learn about new destinations, refresh their minds. And so we've tied up with a lot of tourism boards. Also, we are working out with IATA with an insurance plan to protect agents from airline defaults. Like we've had Jet Airways default, and our members have got only 8% back from the total dues that were due to the agents. So we are working on this kind of an insurance plan where we can charge a certain amount on the ticket, and if the airline goes bust, at least the agent's money is not lost. So these are the few things that we've been doing on behalf from the association point of view.
Wow, that's quite impressive. I didn't know there was so much legwork going on behind the scenes by just an association who's looking out for the well-being of all their fellow people in the industry. So good work on that. Valentin, I know you mentor several travel startups across the world. You started mentoring us 3 years ago when we started EASA. So speaking from my personal experience with you, networking, building relationships, partnerships has always been your main focus while helping startups. Obviously, shutting shop is just not an option for so many founders, and I feel like you get that. My $1 million question to you is, what is your mantra moving forward? Do you still see opportunities for investment, collaboration, or expansion in some companies? Or by and large, is it just a case of keeping your head above the water until this storm sort of blows over?
Well, I think that you should care for the present and think about the future. And maybe in some ways, this present situation might provide some opportunities about which you were not thinking when you have started your own company, your own business. Let me give you an example. You know, like that, I also work closely with Stay22, the company which was in the same batch of Travelport Labs Accelerator.
Yeah.
Where we actually met with you, Cyrus, and I met with them, this company from Canada. They're focused on event travel, which is obviously the worst thing to be focused on in current situation, right? There is no events and there were almost no travel for some time. So they provide a simple solution for event organizers to help their visitors to find accommodation near the venue of the event. Very simple, very effective. The growth of the company was tremendous. It was great throughout recent years, and the plan for this year was to grow like 3 times compared to 2019, but here we come. So the company has started thinking, and I liked the approach of the founders and of the team on this thinking of what might be done, how like to adjust, how to adapt to current situation. And well, they've come up with several interesting ideas, one of which was to offer some technologies and opportunities for hotels, for example. So to put it this thing vice versa, from allowing like event visitors to find a hotel towards hotels to showcase themselves, to allow hotels to showcase themselves. And there are also some other ideas with concierge services for hotels and things like that. And it has started quite well. I mean, well, at least in their home market in Canada, in Montreal, they've got some hotels on board and started putting them up. Obviously, again, hotel sector probably not the best one in current situation, but it's still better than working with event organizers right now, right? And well, another idea of them was to put some technologies which were used towards e-commerce market, which actually has experienced quite big growth, as you all know, during past few months, because people have stopped visiting shops and they started buying more things online. That's why if you see the opportunities to provide some tech towards someone who is actually experiencing not so bad times right now, this actually might be good. And I have seen some examples of that actually here in Russia. Some companies like tour agency company, online tour agency company, have offered its call center capabilities to other companies. So basically, we know like e-commerce needs more call center agents, and this company have free call center agents. So why not like give this opportunity to someone who needs it? Other company have offered some of its internet marketing specialists. So it actually has become like internet marketing agency of sorts, just to, like as you have said, to keep the head above the water. So this is the approach which I think could work. When we speak about collaborations and partnerships, well, I think it's always important. It's always important for everyone, not only for startups, but for everyone to look around for the opportunities for different types of collaborations and partnerships. And actually, if we speak about, let's say, traditional travel businesses, probably excursion bureaus or tour agencies or incoming agencies, I would recommend to find talk which we had with Peter Syme, who is very, very experienced travel entrepreneur from Scotland. On Travel Apps channel, you might find his our sort of webinar, our discussion with him, and he actually has spoken a lot about opportunities of partnerships between these small organizations, not only between startups. And finally, if we speak about some opportunities which might be ahead, I mean, if you ask me about investments, well, I'm not sure that I can give some reassuring answers right now, like, yeah, you're a startup, go for it, take investments and whatnot. Honestly, it depends. It mostly depends on how, like, on which stage you are now, and how you can show to investors that your company is going to, well, actually to survive and to grow throughout later years. And to be really sincere, it's not so easy for early stage startups to show this opportunity. So I'm not sure that pre-seed, seed startups will receive much funding during these years. I think that investors might be turning towards more like, let's say, safe bets, and this is more with Series A, Series B, and later. So if you are at a later stage, you still might be looking for investments, and you still might get some. And we have some news of investments which are coming through to some startups right now, investors of $5 million, $10 million, and so on. But I'm not sure that smaller rounds are really the thing which will be happening right now. So better prepare for, like, find some opportunities inside your team and try to live through these times, and then maybe later you can get some money. Yeah.
Thanks, Valentin. That makes a lot of sense. I did actually see a camping specific travel company. I read it on Skift, I think yesterday, who had raised about 200 million or whatever. But again, that was a Series B round. So it's clear that investors are not going to be putting money into seed round startups. So finally, by the way, audience, please put in your questions. Any questions you have for the panelists. I'm sure at the end of this panel discussion, we'd be happy to take out about 10 minutes to help answer all your questions and anything you want to know about the travel industry from these guys. So Neil, in a recent interview with IRM, in fact, I was asked to give advice for entrepreneurs who wanted to venture into the travel industry. My response, and obviously I'm only 3 years young in this industry, so I don't know how relevant my opinion is, but my response was find a channel partner, be realistic, and look beyond the concept of just travels and bookings, as the market is already very saturated. My question to you is that with all your experience and success in the online space, we'd love to know what your thoughts are on this and what particular message you have for aspiring travel entrepreneurs.
I think, Cyrus, one of the important things you said there was that be realistic. We are seeing many travel success stories, but at the same time, all we see is travel success stories. And I think Valentin and Anu both would agree with me that there are many failures that take place in this travel industry. The travel industry, as all of us know, is one of the biggest industries across the globe. It fuels the economies of many countries. So opportunity is there. You're right in saying that look beyond just travel bookings and just, allowing people to aggregate certain bookings and do it. And that is right, I would say, because travel industries or tourism in particular gives rise to many business opportunities. Today, we are seeing startups go for audio travel guides. Today, we are seeing startups go for certain digital tour managers. So it is growing. And I would say that often many people might today look at the travel industry and be like, 2020 is certainly not the year to start a travel company or start a company in the tourism space. But I would say, let's look at the opportunity, because as Valentin said at the start, there are many opportunities that have come across due to COVID. And because COVID has come about, the industry is at a level where you can't go lower. So even if you were to start something, you can only go higher, because we've never seen something like this happen in this industry, and we will probably never see something as bad as this happen. So to everyone who's a budding entrepreneur who wants to start their own thing, my advice would only be that, yes, like Cyrus said, be realistic, but at the same time, ensure that your people management skills are important. It's what something I've learned over the last 7 years is that without people, you aren't going to go anywhere. You might have all of the ideas in the world, you might have everything, but sometimes it's the people who matter. And there might be someone who might be a super positive person in your team, and there might be someone who might be a slightly negative person in your team. But if you don't handle people management well, it is not going to help, because at the end of the day, we are a service industry. You might have an online shop or an offline shop. Service is what really matters. Customer is king. And when customer is king, creating a personalized experience, listening to your customers becomes very important. So try to have a customer centric approach, ensure that people management is in your DNA. And something we've learned at Veena World is that having a flat organization structure where the founders are approachable for all of the employees of the organization becomes very important. And that's how you could probably start getting your ideas to life. So I would say, let's look at 2020 in a more opportunity sort of way. Like, let's look at it in an optimistic manner. If you have ideas related to travel or tourism, hop on board, get on with it, because it's only that the sky's the limit at this point. And then, then we are seeing many startups coming up. And during the global financial crisis also, we have seen so many of the startups that are unicorns right now that sprang up during that thing. So 2020 is also something like that. If there is an opportunity, jump onto it. And if you don't, someone else is going to. And that's my only advice.
Great. So that's a true entrepreneur speaking. If there's an opportunity, jump on it. Don't think twice. Thanks, Neil. That was some great advice. Now I think we'll move on to the audience questions. The first question is that what should a travel startup do during such times? Which one of you would like to take on this broad question?
I can actually just wanted to say that I liked Neil's idea that the industry is in such situation that you cannot go lower. Well, we hope at least, but it cannot go lower. It reminds me of Frank Sinatra's song about New York, right? If you can make it here, you'll make it anywhere. So basically, if you can make something in travel in 2020, then yeah, sky's the limit. I totally agree with that. And yeah, well, take into a question what startup should do. Well, it depends on what sort of startup you have, honestly. I mean, this is the time when we cannot give like one fit for all advice, honestly. Well, I've tried to give some examples of how startups adapted to current situation. In some cases, this is adaptation where you think, okay, I have a travel startup, but travel is not working right now. But what can I do besides travel? So this is normal. I mean, so it depends. And yeah, at the same time, Neil also has had very good thing that we've seen unicorns which have started during financial crisis, like Airbnb, Uber. These guys, like the whole sharing economy has started thanks to 2008 financial crisis. Maybe we'll see something like this. So we don't know. I'm sorry. This is really a $1 million question. So I wish I had answer for that. I still don't know. But maybe someone could come up with some ideas which work in this particular situation. I cannot.
Okay.
Sure, but I can give this answer.
Great. Thanks, Valentin. I love the reference to Frank Sinatra as well. That was quite creative of you. The next question is from Pavani, and she or he, I'm so sorry, I don't know who. I'm not too sure. But anyways, the question is, how do you foresee the challenge of climate change adding to the post-COVID world? Is the golden age of relatively cheap global travel over? Are any of you pivoting your businesses specifically to environmental concerns?
Should I take it?
Yeah, take it.
Yeah,
Go for
you
it.
can start.
All right. I when it comes to climate change and environmental concerns, one good thing that COVID-19 has done for the environment is that it has kept the planes on the ground. So all of the carbon emissions that we look at have been drastically reduced. In India, climate change is slowly coming into the foray. Customers are asking travel companies about climate change. So many companies have started educating themselves about carbon offsets and a few other things. But at the same time, for travel companies which operate on super low margins, it becomes slightly difficult looking at climate change and bringing in policies that could lead to that. But at the same time, I would also say that companies are becoming more aware. Companies are educating the end customer about it. And it is a long-term approach where maybe it's something would not happen in 2 years or in 2 months or 3 months. But once you start educating the customers, once you start planting the seed of climate change and how their travel could be impacting the environment, in the long term, people start realizing that, and then at that point, it's not all about the price or the experience. It also becomes about saving the planet. So companies are aware of it, and more companies are being made aware of it. And I foresee that in the long term, even the end customer in a developing country like India would consider that when planning their travel.
Okay, interesting viewpoint. Thanks, Neil. Our next question, I think, Anup, it would be probably apt for you to answer this, considering you spoke about TiE's involvement with trying to get some good policies to help the industry. This question is from Sachin Paranchwe. His question is, any thoughts on how countries at the government or ministry level can help the travel industry?
In India, I think it's difficult, but they have done so in Europe. So I think in India, in terms of taxes, we could look at, as I had mentioned, that GST, and we have a lot of compliances in our industry, which it's easy to start a travel agency, but to run it later on, you face all these challenges with the government. So the amount of taxation, the compliance issues, I think that's something, ease of doing business, that should be made. That's what the government can do to help travel agencies and hotels run better.
Cool. But I'm not a travel agent per se, but I am aware that GST has caused a little bit of difficulty for travel agencies in particular. Can you give us a little bit of details on why it is causing a bit of a roadblock for you guys? And for the non-Indian viewers and Valentin, GST is a new taxation system in India, which came about 2 years ago. So Anup, any sort of reasons particularly why it's making life so difficult for travel agents?
See, what is actually happening is we are collecting GST from the customer, paying to the government, giving the invoice to the customer, who is claiming that GST amount back from the government. So the government is not really benefiting from that GST amount because the customer is taking the refund of it. So what we've been trying to say is have a lower GST regime and don't give the refund. rather than collecting 18% from us and the customer taking it back from you. At the end of the day, it's just revenue received in advance for the government, and then at the end of the year they have to pay it back. And same thing for TCS. Neil will be able to talk more on TCS, which is going to be tax collected at source for all remittances made abroad. That is going to be a major hit to the industry as well, where the Indian operators will get more expensive than the foreign operators. So people will book directly abroad with the hotels directly rather than booking through agents here. Neil, you can throw some more light on that?
Yeah, I think the overall thing is that the taxation structure, GST was brought in to make the taxation structure simple. But one of the problems it faced was that people didn't have clarity, not only in the travel industry, but outside too. People lacked clarity, and that led to a lot of confusion with it. And with TCS also coming into the picture, there is a slight feeling that the level playing field that the travel industry operates on might be disturbed. And as a result, I think TiE is doing a great job in communicating to the government what our reservations are on it. And I think through a lot of discussion, we were making headway, but then COVID-19 put us all in lockdown. So yes, TCS is something that could act as a game changer, but at the same time, this can only be solved through a collective effort, not only from the travel agent side, but also from the government side. Because a level playing field is all that TiE and everyone is asking for. And in a level playing field, let the customer decide, right? Then that who he or she ends up booking with. But when taxation comes into the picture, then it becomes a sort where, oh, how much ever travel agents would try, it might be difficult for them because they are already like starting way behind the other players.
Great. Thanks, Anup and Neil. That was extremely insightful, and I think anyone who's not well versed with the system of how the travel agents function in India, and also along with that, clubbing the tax perspective into it, I think it's fairly easy to understand that things are a little too complicated and too difficult right now with the tax structure, and a little bit of help from the government or at the ministry level, like Sachin, would be really, really helpful. If they had to help one thing, I think it would be the tax system for travel agents. I have another question, and I'm again open to any of you to take up. Is risk management a dedicated focus area now after the pandemic?
I think all three of us would say yes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Without doubt.
Probably.
Yeah,
well,
I think for any training to do with risk management or anything, then we're on the right platform right now. I think it's without further ado, we should totally tell everyone to kind of get in touch with the IRM India or UK or whatever, and probably if it's within their bandwidth to train employees or hire people who are risk specialists. Do you think? I think that's more of the question. Do you think it's an absolute necessity to have that in your company, considering we're talking of trimming down on staff right now?
I have seen a quite interesting take from one of Russian restaurateurs who obviously have suffered from COVID. And he was saying it like, well, of course, we could have some money for some bad times. We could save some money for some bad times. But we couldn't imagine that the times would be so bad. So we couldn't imagine that we just have had to close our restaurants like for 2 months or so. And what could I have done? Imagine me coming to my partners and saying, hey guys, let's keep some money inside the company, like probably there might be some pandemic happening or something, like the thing which has happened last time, like 100 years ago, no one was thinking about it. So yeah, we have not been through such situation yet. Hopefully we won't be in some time, but who knows? And this means that, yeah, I think right now we'll be starting thinking more about it. And yeah, by the way, one more kind of funny thing is about Wimbledon tennis tournament, like Wimbledon was paying its insurance for the pandemic in cases of pandemic throughout the years.
They've covered losses.
Like why they're doing it, like why it's not going to happen, and they pay like $2 million a year or something for this insurance. Yeah, here it is, and they've received here $200 million. So yeah, this is like probably the way of thinking in terms of risk management. Yeah, so probably you should think about some outcomes that seem to be impossible at the moment, but yeah, here it is. And of course, we cannot think about everything, cannot take everything into account, but I think that Institute of Risk Management can teach some things of how to take most of the things into account, how to think about most of the things which could happen. So yeah, I agree that this is a great platform to talk about.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I think we're up to the hour mark now, and we're done with the audience questions. It's obviously been an honor to be the moderator for you guys. I just have one final question that's probably on everyone's minds, everyone who works in the travel industry's mind. Can you give me just a number, and it can be a guess, the number of months, years that it would take for the travel industry to be booming again and to be prosperous? Starting with Neil.
Well, our calculations say that there would be, like, we would probably be in a W economy where travel would in the short term boom because everyone has been home. But at the same time, COVID-19 has had an effect which has led to other industries also getting disrupted. So liquidity in the market is going to go down. And because that happens, certain luxuries that travel, and travel is often considered a luxury, people don't spend much on. So for us to reach the numbers as before pre-COVID, which we were doing, we are foreseeing a 2-year time period at least, if not more. There are many companies there is IATA saying that 2024 is going to be the year where all numbers are going to reach there. But it seems to us that 2022 would be around the time when the numbers would go there, because guest service again plays an important role, and we are banking on that.
Great. So I think all things considered, that's a fairly optimistic viewpoint, and you seem to be quite certain, and I mean, obviously backed by a bit of data and studying and analysis. So that's great to know. Valentin, what's your opinion?
Well, I will side with Neil in this case. Like, if we speak, like I try to be optimistic and say, like, yeah, we might see 2022 as 2019. So basically 2021 could be the year of a slow recovery process. And again, I agree with Neil here that this is mostly due to the fact that other parts of the economy have suffered. So there might be problems with investments, loans, and in general with clients' money, let's say this. So yeah, hopefully 2022 would be the year of future growth.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Anu?
Yeah, see, we don't have no crystal ball can actually tell us what the future of travel will be. But I think by summer of 21, we should have at least 75% of pre-COVID travel back. And then, as Neil said, of course, 2022, it will be back to pre-COVID levels.
Great. So thanks, guys, and audience. You've heard it firsthand from these experienced professionals in the industry. So anything you read up about the travel industry being a downward slippery slope, I think all of us here are quite optimistic that it would be the opposite, and things could start looking up very, very soon. So on that note, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time out to do this. Thank you, all the viewers. Special thanks to IRM and Harsh for making this happen. And I'm going to pass it on to Rory, who's in the UK.
Hi guys, thank you very much for that. Yeah, no, that was a really, really great event. Thank you all for your contributions, and yep, Cyrus for hosting and moderating, done a great job. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. We'll ensure the recording is made available on the website within the next week or so, so keep a lookout for that. And yeah, again, thank you for joining, and thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Bye-bye.
us over.